My name is Jill Nussinow, and I'm a registered dietitian who goes by the name the Veggie Queen. And I went vegan in 2002 officially because I started teaching for the McDougall program. Prior to that, I was probably vegan, but I didn't pay any attention to that because I've been a vegetarian since I'm 13. He asked me if I could teach, and I said yes, and it was basically a no-fat added vegan diet, and I was like, yep, can do it. So that was my official time.
Okay, and did you do it for ethical reasons?
Well, I became a vegetarian because basically I hated meat. And so that's why I became a vegetarian. I fall into a category of very small people, not small people, a small percentage of people who became vegetarian for that reason. After that, quite a number of years after that, it was all kinds of reasons, the animals, the environment, and my health. Just became everything.
And how has that changed since you've gone vegan? Maybe evolved to present day? Like, what is the most important reasons for you right now?
I would say the environment is pretty important, and my health is even more important than that, because if I'm not healthy, I can't do anything.
And are you still doing the low fat?
Well, I do mostly low fat. I teach a lot of cooking. I can teach low fat. Fat, for whatever reason, maybe because I had cut it down or out for so long, doesn't really agree with my body, so I just don't eat that much of it. You're not going to find me pouring EVOO on my food.
Yeah. So. But what about like nuts and seeds?
Oh, nuts and seeds. I did a talk here once called Going Nutty and CD2. And that was a long time ago. So nuts and seeds, I eat nuts and seeds, olives and avocados. I don't really put a limit on them. I could probably weigh a couple pounds less if I did, but no, love nuts and seeds.
What do you think about people raising their children this way? Do you have any information on that you might?
Oh, I think it's a great idea. When I taught at Santa Rosa Junior College, and when I was teaching, the easiest thing to teach was vegan, because if somebody said, oh, I'm allergic to eggs, or I can't eat dairy, or whatever it is, it just satisfied everybody. And I think teaching children, they understand, but they don't understand that they have this thing for animals. They love animals, and they're not really being taught, oh, we don't eat animals, because they're getting animals to eat. But I think they have a kind of intuitive, instinctual thing that maybe they don't like eating animals. And so I think it's a great thing to teach children, depending on how you teach them. And I've known vegan children, and some of them are they're amazing kids, and they also know to ask, like, is there something in there that maybe I don't want to eat? So I think it's a great idea. And nutritionally, from a dietitian perspective, as long as the parents know what they're doing, I think it's wonderful.
Do you think it's perhaps maybe even the most protective against reducing risk for chronic disease and all-cause mortality?
I do think that it's incredibly effective in terms of health for people. I mean, here's the whole thing. It's health for people and health for the planet. I mean, what could be wrong with that?
Right, yeah. But as far as raising our children this way, intuitively or presumptuously, I would imagine everybody would want to do what's best for their children at protecting them against or reducing the risk for chronic disease.
Absolutely. I mean, but when your kids are little, you think nothing bad's going to happen to them, but judging from what's happening in the world and the number of children that are obese and are getting diabetes at such a much younger age, I would think you'd really want to pay attention. And additionally, compared to 30 years ago when there weren't, I'm not talking like fake meat and stuff like that, but I mean, now you can buy 10 different kinds of milk as opposed to, maybe you could get soy milk then. So I think there's a much broader range of products, but the basic products are the basic products: beans, rice, grains, nuts, seeds, fruits, vegetables. They still exist, and we do have a broader array of those too. But yeah, I think it's perfectly fine to give kids, have them have a vegan diet. They're not kids anymore here who grew up as vegans, and they look pretty darn healthy to me.
Yeah. You're here as in the Vegan Summerfest.
At the Vegan Summerfest, yeah.
Now, you were 13. Did you have any kickback going vegetarian?
No, I didn't actually. My mother said, whatever you want to do. And I became a vegetarian because I had a friend who became a vegetarian. And when he told me, I was like, I want to do that. And then if we had meat, I would invite someone over to eat my meat because I didn't want to eat it. And so it just was kind of, no, my mother said, whatever you want to do. And I think, honestly, she never drank milk. I never drank milk. So she never gave me milk because she didn't like it. And also, I don't think she really cared that much for meat. So it just was kind of easy. She made it because my father liked it. And so I think it was easy for her to be like, yeah, whatever you want to do.
A lot of people might have a challenge. There is a learning curve to this dietarily. You mentioned legumes, greens, grains, fruits, veggies, mushrooms, nuts, seeds, herbs, and spices. You didn't really mention all those, but
yeah,
essentially.
Thank you for mentioning those.
But essentially, you mentioned all those things. Do you have any tips for people wanting to transition into this and how to go about it? Maybe because a lot of people might have some people might have difficulties acclimating to beans if they're not used to those. Or
here's the whole thing. People, if you say, do you eat hummus? Yeah, every time I eat hummus, I get a big tummy ache because they don't eat beans. And then they eat a lot of hummus and they're like, it doesn't work with their system. So I highly recommend that if people are going to start eating beans, that they eat a tablespoon 3 times a day for a couple of weeks. And the easiest way to do that, because I heard somebody say this, but it didn't make any sense. It's like you can't open a can, which is what most people are going to do, and eat a teaspoon and expect that can to be good in 2 weeks. You have to take the contents out of the can. You know, you have to have enough for maybe 4 days, and then you freeze the rest, maybe in tablespoon amounts, and then you take it out every day, and you can gradually increase depending on how your body's doing. It takes about 3 weeks for your microbiome to adjust. You can't open the can, and people are like, well, the beans went bad. Yeah, they're like food, and they go bad. So that's one way they could do it, you know, if you want to include more beans. A lot of people have an easier time with lentils than they do with actual beans. So you can do that. And they're super easy to cook. So they're easy and inexpensive. And then the other thing is, like, get yourself a good book or a good guide or something to how to become, like the book Becoming Vegan is unbelievable by Brenda Davis and Visanto Molina. I don't know if they've updated recently, but they updated it and they had a new edition. It's a great book. It tells you everything you need to know about the nutrition. I don't know if it has recipes, I can't remember, but you can learn enough in that book to actually put something into place. And then I guess the other tip is, like, don't beat yourself up if you're not doing it like perfectly, because there is no perfectly. But eat more vegetables, eat more fruit, you know, just eat the foods that you eat that are already vegan. That's where the issue comes in. People are like, I went vegan and I bought the vegan burger and I did this and I did that. And I'm like, take an assessment of the foods that you already eat that are vegan. Like your grains, your beans, your fruits, your vegetables, nuts, seeds, you know, mushrooms, and herbs and spices. Those are all vegan already.
Has there ever been a person that you've encountered as a registered dietitian? I guess you have a practice of sorts?
No, I don't practice. I do it. But no, I don't.
You help people, maybe?
I don't do any counseling. I teach cooking.
Okay. Okay, because I was
But I have encountered people.
Like that weren't able to do this and actually did everything
you know,
that you would think it would have been right.
You know, I have found people who say, oh, I just can't do it. You know, it doesn't work for me. But, you know, they may have, I don't know what work for them is. So some people, I heard someone last night discussing this, we were talking about, they said, I can't do without meat. Okay, well, you know, if you think you can't, you can't. And I actually have a friend, and she's told me this, and she's kind of slim like I am, slimmer actually. And she said, oh, I really need my meat, otherwise I don't feel good. You know, I don't know that she's actually done the whole thing, but she's kind of aware. If people include more vegan food, they're doing great. You know, some people just do this overnight. They don't even think about it. And so it's just an interesting thing to see what people do. But yes, there are going to be people who are unsuccessful. Now, the celebrities who have been unsuccessful, I don't even know why. I think they misstated what they were thinking when they were like, I'm vegan, you know, like for them it's a trend or a fad or something, but for people who want to improve their health or whatever, some of them are really trying. I mean, you just have to look at what they're doing, and you could be vegan and eat a lot of crap, but if you do whole food, plant-based, vegan, you're going to probably be eating a lot of really good food. And I think it doesn't take that long before you notice the effect in your body where you're like, oh, I feel great. I have a lot of energy, whatever it is.
I've heard estimates are as high as maybe 95% of diets fail. So if they're treating it as a diet.
Right, it's not a diet.
Yeah.
It's a lifestyle, it's a way of choosing. You can go as little as you want, where I had someone actually here say to me, I'm a medical vegan. I was like, what's that? And she had explained to me she was doing it only for medical reasons. And unlike mushrooms where you have like a very broad array of people who do it for dyeing, eating, photographing, IDing, so on, it's like pretty broad. It's like you're either an ethical vegan or you're a medical vegan, or you do it for your health, or you do it for the environment. So it's not that big. So
how is medical different than health?
Well, because a lot of them are like, maybe they do Esselstyn and they're like no nuts, no seeds, no oil, very strict, because they've been told by a medical person. So it's unlike I might do it because I want to be healthy, but I don't have to do it for medical reasons. So I thought that was really interesting. Kind of gave me a different spin on things, like, oh, medical vegan, okay.
Yeah.
And because we had
essentially they were told to do it.
Right. We had a conversation. It was like, well, what about honey? What about? And she said, no, it's just I need to follow this, and so she was vegan for the food part only. So it's like, where do people fall on that range? And I guess the biggest thing is always why? Why are you doing this? Because the people who do it because, well, even then, but your health is so important. Even then, if somebody tells you you need to do this thing, you're not likely to necessarily stick with it for a really, really long time. And 95% of diets do fail because they're diets. But if you adopt it as a lifestyle, like this is how I eat, you're likely to stick with it. Because if somebody says to you, oh, well, I made this meat and I want you to have some, the person's likely to say, well, I don't eat that, and they may have a reason, they may have more than one reason. I have a neighbor, he got that tick bite and he can't eat animal. Yeah, whatever it is, he can't eat animal products. But somebody could say that, oh, I have a medical reason why I can't eat it. And I think people feel comfortable with that, because there's a lot of social pressure. Like, I went to a party recently and she told everybody, I don't know why, make your dish vegan. She's not vegan, but she said, make your dish vegan. And this woman who I know brought like this beautiful tray with fruits and vegetables and nuts and crackers, and she put cheese on it. And she said, well, she told me to bring vegan. Now, it wasn't vegan cheese. She told me to bring vegan, but I thought people might want something else. And I thought that was fascinating. And she told everybody to bring vegan, and there were all these salads that people threw cheese into, and I was like, why? Because some people are so attached to not doing it or doing it the way they do it that they're not thinking of the other part.
Yeah. After you went vegan, did you notice any physiological, mental, or emotional changes?
No, I think I was pretty much already there. So yeah, I think it was very easy for me. I mean, having been a vegetarian for quite a long time, and as I said, I probably was vegan before I did that, because I didn't eat eggs, I didn't drink milk, I might have had cheese for, maybe not that often, and so I was like probably 98% already vegan. So no, I was healthy, and I'm still healthy, and I love being healthy.
Yeah, and then now you mentioned earlier like a tablespoon 3 times a day of beans as a way to acclimate to the beans. Yeah. Why not just do like a tablespoon 3 times a day, then the next day bump it up at some point?
You can at some point, but it often takes that like 3 tablespoons. You can if you're feeling fine, but it often takes that 3 tablespoons for 3 weeks. It's just a formula. 3 tablespoons for 3 weeks for your gut microbiome to kind of adjust.
So then after 3 weeks, you could eat a can of beans? And you're
No,
fine?
you probably still have to do it gradually.
Yeah.
You know, like I said, that's the hummus issue. Oh, I eat a whole tub of hummus and then I feel bad.
So as far as like transitioning to the point where you can eat, you know, a serving or 3 of beans in a day or legumes, to work your way up to that, just systematically get to the point where that tablespoon becomes a serving.
Yeah, you could have, I mean, and most people who are transitioning are not eating as many beans as I am because they just don't. They don't really yet know necessarily how to incorporate them, what to do with them. So if they have a half a cup of beans a day, you know, they'll probably be fine, but it would be a half a cup at once. Or maybe it wouldn't, maybe a quarter cup and then a quarter cup on their salad. This is part of it. You have to be in tune with your body. And if you're not, you just do the hummus thing. Like every time I eat hummus, I feel bad.
Yeah. Yeah, so what are some examples of ways to incorporate, I think legumes and greens are probably the 2 biggest, most important categories to focus on maybe.
Did you say greens or grains?
Greens, because people already eat grains.
Right.
Typically.
So yeah, greens, I mean, you know, I think it depends on the person. Like my husband gets a green smoothie every morning. You know, there's lots of kale in it and it's not that much fruit. So for some people that works great. I don't drink smoothies. I make like a big pot of greens and I eat cooked greens with various other things. I eat a large salad every day and my salad's a little different than my husband's salad. He doesn't like any like arugula or anything really that has any bitterness to it. So I eat that. But I mean, there's so many greens that you can get now that it's easy, but I just eat them at least twice a day, maybe more. I don't eat typical breakfast, so I often have greens with my breakfast. I think it's just getting used to eating those things. And my husband is a great example. When I met him, he ate iceberg lettuce mostly, and then he ate romaine, and then like, you know, little salad, and then he'd be like, no, I want the red leaf lettuce. Okay, great. So I buy darker colored lettuce, and now sometimes he's like, that bowl's not big enough. I'm like, okay, I'll give you a bigger bowl. So he kind of had to gradually move along. And so, you know, and for him, salads are fairly simple. For me, a salad might be a little more interesting. You know, I just was somewhere where they had fresh corn, so I may have fresh corn in it. Almost always, my salads have hemp seeds and nutritional yeast, and I use vinegar, and, you know, my salad is great.
Now, do you put some maybe chickpeas, and that this is where you might be integrating?
This is where I can put my beans on if I want, but usually I'm eating beans in another form. But strangely, my husband loves chickpeas on his salad. So he eats more beans now than he ever ate. He loves burritos. In fact, he texted me, when you go next time, could you leave me a whole lot of burritos? I'm like, yes, I can.
Well, like Amy's burritos or ones you're making?
My burritos, because I cook beans I cook about a half a pound of beans twice a week. And so we eat beans a lot. And so no, burritos are like one of the easiest things you could ever make. And so I just make burritos and I stick them in the freezer and then all I have to do is pull them out of the freezer.
So are you making your own tortillas too, or?
No, I don't make my own tortillas. But, you know, there's decent tortillas that you can get.
Yeah. So. And besides beans, what else do you put in there? And what kind of beans?
Any beans that I've made. I'm a big fan of Rancho Gordo beans, which are specialty beans, but it may be, I often mix beans. It could be black beans, or it could be black beans mixed with pinto beans. It could be, you know, any beans. Sometimes when I don't know what to eat, I just make some lentils and I make some quinoa. You know, I just make life easy for me. So, but I'll eat any specialty beans I can. They could be white beans, they could be red beans, they could be any bean at all. And I use that, and usually I have made rice. I make brown rice mixed with black rice and red rice. It's very colorful, it's really interesting. And I'll put some of that in there, and I'll put some salsa in there. Give it a wrap, throw it in the freezer.
Now, you did a talk today on mushrooms. Can you give us a summary of what that was about?
Yeah, the summary of my mushroom talk is eat mushrooms, every day if you can. Make sure you cook them well. And the benefits of them are incredible for your immune system, you know, for your gut microbiome. And don't eat any wild mushrooms that you don't know if you want to live.
I try to get mushrooms in my life as much as I can. Sometimes it's a hassle, you know, because you got to get them fresh and then you got to cook them right away and they don't like, you know.
Yeah.
And so is there an easy way to integrate them into your life? Maybe a mushroom powder?
There's 2 easy ways. Well, there's more than 2. So number 1, you can use dried mushrooms and rehydrate them. You can take those dried mushrooms and you can powder them and you can sprinkle it on your food. It's not as good. Or you can take your mushrooms that you have fresh and you can cook them. And then, you know, an 8-ounce container of mushrooms cooks down to like not much. So if you cook that and you can't eat it all, you can stick some in your freezer. And then when you want mushrooms, you can just put them on your food or in your food. I would likely just make a whole bunch. Because I'm a mushroom hunter, I have a lot of wild mushrooms that I've cooked and put in the freezer. And I label them and date them, and then when I want them, I pull them out and
So
I eat them.
when you cook them, what are you doing there?
Well, I gave about 8 different ways that you could cook them, maybe more. You can dry saute them, you can roast them, you can grill them, you could steam them, you can pressure cook them. The easiest way is just put them in a saute pan and cook them. You know, that's the easiest way.
With a little soy sauce or something? Or?
Oh yeah, you can, I say flavor them. You could put in a little tamari, you could put ginger, garlic, or you can do them just plain. You know, if you do them plain, they go with everything.
And then you freeze them cooked and plain?
Cooked, yeah. I freeze them cooked. And like the key is to cook them in the amount you think you're gonna want. So don't like fill like a container with mushrooms and then you're like, oh, I really only wanted a block of mushrooms. Yeah, it doesn't work.
So how can we find out more about you and where you...
Okay, I have a website called thevegiequeen.com and I'm on Facebook as Jill Nussinow, which I don't take any more friends, but the Veggie Queen. And I'm on Instagram as the Veggie Queen 1. Everything you want to know about me is on my website, I think. And I have an email newsletter that people can sign up for. I do it once or twice a month through my website.
Do you do any other kind of talks besides mushrooms?
Oh yeah, I'm going to do a talk on herbs and spices, and I'm doing one on fermentation, and I just did a Zoom fermentation class. So
give me a quick tip on how to get started on that, fermentation.
It is so simple, but there's so many nuances. Read a good book, like Fermenting Vegetables by Kirsten Schocky. Like you need something like that, or an online course, or it takes work.
You can't just take some cabbage and salt and...
Yeah, you can. That's the whole thing. You can, but you need to know a little bit more than that.
Yeah. Because it's risky, I suppose, right?
No, it's not so risky, but things could go wrong, and there's a number of nuances that you kind of need to know about. So.
Sounds a little overwhelming.
It's not overwhelming. It's super easy. In fact, I'm going to teach people on Sunday how to make soy yogurt. That is one of the easiest things you can do.
About herbs and spices, you want to throw anything out there that's interesting that you want to share? I mean, we love growing our own herbs and spices. It's so easy.
It's so easy. So I encourage people to grow at least 1, 2, 3 herb plants if you can, more if you like. Spices, usually we're going to buy them because we don't grow them in the US mostly. The key to herbs and spices is using them. So like it's not enough to have a great selection, but to actually put them in your food. They are incredible antioxidants filled with phytochemicals, and the recommendation is 30 plants a week, and they count. So if you put 5 different spices and herbs in your food, you're up to 5 for then. And if you do 5 the next day for a different meal, you're now at 10. So you only need 20 other foods to eat.
So for me, rosemary, parsley, sage, thyme, clove, cardamom, Ceylon cinnamon, turmeric, those are like the main things I go to?
Yep.
Is there any you want to throw out there?
Yes, there's lots of stuff out there. There's many different kinds of chilies that are amazing. Paprika, because it comes from the peppers. Saffron is one that a lot of people don't use because it's expensive, but you don't use that much of it, and it's highly nutritious and kind of medicinal. Sumac, which actually grows here in the East, is an amazing spice when you have to dry it and process it, but it tastes like lemon. It's used a lot in the Middle East. There's a whole list of them. So the more you use, the better.
Mullein?
Mullein is a medicinal herb and not one you just put on your food. You'd have to use it as medicine.
We see that a lot around here too, that's why.
I have one that keeps coming back to my little garden.
Oh, neat.
Yeah. So I'm like, oh, I got to harvest the mullein. I have a giant mullein. It gets to be more than 6 feet tall.
Wow. Wow. And it comes back every year.
It seems to be coming back lately. I think it's giving me a message. Use me, use me.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate your time. I know we got to cut it short because you got places to be and people to see. You didn't come here for me.
Yeah, thank you. This was great. Awesome. I love answering questions.
Last minute encouraging words?
Last minute encouraging words. Yes, pay attention to what you eat, but also pay attention to what you think and what comes out of your mouth. And I forgot to mention, I teach breath awareness too. So I think it's not just what you eat, it's what you think and feel and do.
The only thing I have an issue with that, I hope you don't mind me interjecting real quick, is a lot of times people think they're doing the right thing when they're doing the wrong.
I will share with you, there's this yoga teacher, I teach at a place in Mexico called Rancho La Puerta, and she's now 88, and her thing in yoga would be, are you doing what you think you're doing? And I would always reflect on that, like, am I doing what I think I'm doing? And we don't always know the thing to do. And I think it's getting support from other people. Like if I look at you, I could say, you need to move your arm a little bit back. It's not looking quite right, But I can't see, is this one up, this one down? So I think having other people to help us and guide us and be there for us is super important.